Alice's and you. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to be hearing from Sheena, and she's going to be sharing some information I know you will want to hear. So, those of you who had questions last week, we've got the answers for you and even more information. So, here we go as we hear from Sheena.
Good morning, Nadine. Good morning, listeners. Today we want to continue our discussion on pensions and a related topic of pensionable age. But as usual, let me start by responding to a question sent by one of your listeners. This particular listener said that her sister had worked with the Heart Trust NTA for over 20 years and then was made redundant, but that she has not received NIS payments. And she wanted to know how she could get those NIS payments. She did not provide any other information on the situation. So no information was provided as to the age of her sister. So I'm going to assume that her sister has not yet reached pensionable age, which is why she's not receiving a pension. Persons need to recall, as I've said a few times on this program, that the pensionable age in the public sector is now 65. There's provision for early retirement, and so I'm spending a little time on this. There's provision for early retirement at the age of 60, and this has been the case since 2018. Now, if it is that her sister, even though she spent over 20 years at NTA Heart Trust, if she has not yet reached pensionable age, she will not start to get the NIS pensions, nor will she get the pensions that's payable through the Accountant General Department. If it is, however, that our sister is at pensionable age and not getting a pension, albeit spending 20 plus years with NTA, then she needs to just check it out. She needs to go to NIS office or call them and explain her situation, and the same thing to do with the Accountant General Department. But however, listeners need to be aware that the fact that you're being made redundant does not in and of itself mean that you should get a pension. What is important is if you have arrived at the pensionable age and whether you were making pension contributions. If you're in private sector, in public sector, that's not a requirement, provided you have done the service. And for the public sector, therefore, they look at things like how many years of continuous service you did or how many years of broken service. Now, if it is, ma'am, that your sister was not at pensionable age and remains not at pensionable age, it is a little bit too early to be having this discussion about
Right.
whether or not where is our pensions.
Mm-hmm.
However, about a year before she gets to the pensionable age, which is now 65, you want to check it out. You want to reach out to Heart Trust NTA. You want to reach out to the Accountant General's Department. You want to reach out to NIS to make certain that her documentation is coming in so that she can be paid a pension when she arrives at the appropriate age. Okay?
All right. So just to remind you, we are right inside governance policies and you, and we're just going to wrap right, Sheena.
This
That's
morning, Nadine, the topic of what's the pensionable age and the
right.
topic of pension continues.
Okay.
And it's appropriate that I started with that particular question.
Okay. Well, I thank Sheena. She does a lot of research. I remember that oh, I remember that she she I called her earlier and she said, I'm doing finishing up the research. She makes sure that all of this is ready for us, and so I want to ensure that you get all the information. So let's hear a little bit more of what Sheena has to share with us. Go ahead, Sheena.
18.
Yes.
The pensionable age for the public sector is now 65. Previously, it was 60, and the persons could get early retirement at the age of 54, 55. That's no longer the case. The pensionable age now, since April 2018, is 65. There was an arrangement made for persons who on in April 2018 would have been older than 54 years. Those persons were allowed to be phased out of the public service system at pretty much on the basis of the older retirement age. So if in 2018 you were older than 54, for the next 2 years, such persons were given the opportunity to be phased out of the the system, and in fact some of them have their retirement ages going up to about 2023. But I think those persons would have had to have applied already for them to have been granted the opportunity to be in the transition group. But the takeaway that I want persons, because most persons listening to this program would not qualify for the transitional period, assuming that most persons listening to the program are still in the civil service and are maybe not yet at the age of 54, 55. So therefore, they would not have been at the age of over 55 in 2018. So the takeaway that I want listeners is that from time to time, someone will write to us and they will say, I did 20 years or I did 25 years and I want to be able to get my monies now because, I am in destitute conditions. If you're in destitute conditions, get in touch with NIS, see if there's any benefit there that you can take advantage of. There are several benefits. I've gone through some of those already. However, the benefits that are tied to retirement, such as the NIS pension and the government pension, the full government pension, those are not going to be payable until someone attains the age of 65 unless they are granted a deferred pension.
Why this
What
is
is
a
a
lot.
deferred pension?
Come now. Yes.
There is provision under the relevant legislation for persons who have attained the age of 60 to be allowed to get a pension, even though they have not yet attained the age of 65. Such persons must have given 10 years of continuous service, or if the service is broken, it must total 15 years. And then there would be some other requirements. So if you're at the age of 59 or 58 and you listen to this program and you are operating under the view that you won't be entitled to a pension until you're 65 and you would like to leave the service, then be informed that you can make the necessary application internally. Go to your HR department, whichever agency of government that you work with. Reach out to your HR manager, HR officer, your permanent secretary, and say that I'm 59, I'm 58, I'm 57, and I'd like to be considered for a deferred pension when I arrive at the age of 60. If someone puts in over 10 years in the service or the requisite 15, but such a person was dismissed, those persons will not be eligible for the deferred pension at all. Where you work with an executive agency and that executive agency or yourself decided to stay on the government's non-contributory pension scheme, that is the government's pension scheme. So even though if you work with an executive agency, but you are still on the government's pension scheme, then the applicable age of retirement is also 65 and 60 for early retirement, right?
Boy, I tell you, the time goes so quickly. Let's see if we can get in this
There is
last
also
part. Yes.
provision for persons to be given early retirement for medical conditions. So even though you have not yet attained
Right,
the
I know
age of
of that. Yeah.
60, you could be given early retirement if you're in the government service and you have some serious medical condition that is going to prevent you
Because life happens.
from continuing to work in any event. So I think, Nadine, that's it for us today. We looked at the retirement age, we looked at early retirement, and we looked at the possibility of persons being entitled to what we call a deferred pension, commonly referred to as an early pension, an earlier pension. And the takeaway is 65 years for the regular retirement age in the government service since 2018, no longer 55, no longer 60, and early retirement now would generally be at the age of 60, no longer 55, but there continues to be provisions for persons to be made, uh, to be given early retirement if they have a
If they have a
serious medical. It's always a
situation.
pleasure talking to you
Thank
and
you.
assisting in educating your listeners. You all
Thank
have a good
you.
day now.
Thank
Bye.
you so much, Sheena. I see a question coming in. Well, several, and I'm going to respond to. Oh Lord, where is it? Edna says, "I would like to know what measures are there in place for delinquent employers who continue to deduct annual returns." So you see it on your pay slip, the deduction is made, so them say, but it's not being turned over to the relevant authorities. Guess what you can do? Remember, Sheena Stubbs Gibson keeps saying to us, you have a right, whether or not they're doing it. So it's not like you're a telpon or whatever the word is. But it's your money. So go to the call. You can call any of the relevant authorities and just say, hello, I just want to check if, the status of my monies that are being deducted and, how much I have. You know, tell nobody, you just call in to check. So whether or not your company is doing it or not doing it, you don't know. You are calling NIS. Hello, I'm just checking. I work at abcinternational.com limited, and I'm just calling to check. how are the returns? I'm checking on my returns. There you go. And it is important because you don't want to retire. And then when you're ready now to reap, you hear, oh, they weren't paying over their monies. And then you're stuck. And in some cases, as we've heard in the past, the company not in business again, the people they migrate or they gone on to a different life. Listen, do what you can. That's what you can do. Thank you for listening to Governance Policies and You. This is Love 101. Our Millennial Hour comes up in just a few.
Make sure your child can live life to the fullest. Apply for a Satacor Life Child Protector Critical Illness Plan today. The time by Satacor Life is
7:01 on the Sound of Love 101. Actually, it's 7:02, but the way time goes by so quickly. We're going to be jumping into our Hi, Lady D. We're going to be jumping